George Villiers, 1st Duke Buckingham. George Villiers, the 1st Duke of Buckingham, has a startlingly small position on the historical consciousness. Undoubtedly one of the most important men in England during his reign, apart from possibly the king himself, his historical significance sparks from his patronage of the arts, his religious ideas, and his unrivalled corruption and excess. Born into a powerful Leicestershire family in 1592, George Villiers was the son of the High Sheriff of Leicester and MP, George Villiers. His mother, Mary, groomed him to become one of the most successful courtiers in English history. Notably excelling at fencing, dancing, and French, this country gentleman was described as the handsomest-bodied man in all England. Even before his entry to court, Villiers was associating with the power players of the period, for example John Eliot, with whom he was educated, a notable parliamentarian, Puritan, and member of the so-called Puritan network, who would go on to define the revolutionary settlement, and indeed impeach Buckingham in the future. Villiers' introduction to court could not have come at a more opportune time. In 1614, Robert Carr, the Earl of Somerset, was falling from grace. Another of the king's favourites, Somerset was pro-Spanish and allegedly Catholic Privy Councillor, having recently been appointed as Lord Chamberlain. He was brought to trial by a figure which is Edward Cook, another figure we'll see again, and Francis Bacon, on charges of murder. As such, Villiers' initial introduction and rise to power should be seen as a continuation of anti-Somerset court intrigues. This is best displayed by the intense lobbying from the court to appoint Villiers as cupbearer, thus giving him access to the king's ear. Before we go any further, I'd like to remind you to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and want to see more. Now, back to the video. This ploy by the anti-Somerset faction worked wonders, as between the years of 1615 and 1623, George Villiers saw a meteoric rise where he was elevated from a baronet to the first non-royal duke in 50 years. His influence at court during this time grew almost as exponentially as his wealth, as he extended patronage liberally, and even forming close friendships with Prince Charles. Aside from being created Duke of Buckingham in 1623, perhaps his most significant appointment came in 1619, when he was made Lord High Admiral of England, giving him substantial access to funds, as well as another avenue to extend patronage.
Patronage in the modern day is often seen as corrupt, nepotistic, and a way of promoting cronyism. In the 17th century, however, patronage was not only accepted, but was the main mechanism through which the state functioned. Buckingham's rise to power is a great example of patronage, both good and bad, supported by figures such as Francis Bacon, who amongst others provided serious financial support to Villiers during his first months in court, as well as lobbied for his appointment to significant court office, while on the flip side, Buckingham supported the rise of figures such as Lord Cranfield and other important figures during the Stuart Age. The historian Conrad Russell describes the period between 1618 and 1628 as the reign of Buckingham. He quickly gained such standing with the king that no political decision and no choice for promotion could be made without his agreement. He undertook the work of patronage with a dedication which had not been given to it since the death of Essex.
The trip to Spain. In the background of Buckingham's entire rise to power, James I's dream of a Spanish match for one of his sons had split the court and parliament into two main factions. As previously mentioned, Buckingham's introduction to court was on behalf of the anti-Catholic party. Despite Buckingham's opposition to the Spanish match, both he and Charles would travel through France and Spain incognito in an attempt to win the hand of the Infanta. The Prince and Duke would return in October of 1623 without the Infanta due to Spanish unwillingness to associate with non-Catholics. Despite this rather disappointing outcome from Charles's point of view, it was evident that during this period Buckingham was shifting his favour from James to the heir. Furthermore, the aftermath caused a paradigm shift in foreign policy as Charles's Francophile nature begins. Charles would go on to marry Princess Henrietta Maria of France, and a pro-French monarch would sit on the throne for the next 3 reigns. The reign of Buckingham and Charles. It was during the first years of Charles's reign that Buckingham's power really begins to decline. Many blamed him for the startling military defeats at Cadiz, the Belgian coast, and La Rochelle, as well as the new revolutionary ecclesiastical settlement led by Laud, a previous beneficiary of his favour, which was highly controversial. This would lead a collection of men, some who we've seen before and others we will see again in this series, to attempt to impeach him. These men, a veritable who's who of Puritan and parliamentary figures: Coke, Phillips, Eliot, Pym, Rudyard and Seymour. We've seen Coke before, one of the Privy Councillors who tried Somerset and had a hand in the ascent of Buckingham. Phillips, who would later go on to be a colonel in the new model army, was one of the first to present the case, and Eliot, an old friend of Buckingham's, who became disillusioned with the extravagant corruption and the religious position of Buckingham. Pym, undoubtedly the most significant parliamentarian in his lifetime, although as yet unknown. Finally, Rudyard, the most important and eloquent of the MPs during Buckingham's reign. Rudyard, in 1628, delivered a fiery and eerily diagnostic speech.
This to the crisis of parliaments. By this we shall know if parliaments live or die. Mr. Speaker, we are not now upon the business of the kingdom, we are upon the very existence of it, whether we shall be a kingdom or not.
Charles I's reaction to the impeachment of his favourite was, or was the cause of, the two major issues of his reign. In order to protect him, he dissolved parliaments repeatedly from 1626, and in 1629 began his 11 years' tyranny. Both Buckingham's corruption and incompatibility with a sitting parliament worsened Charles's already bottomless debt. Charles's relationship with Parliament was shaped by Buckingham's impeachment and eventual assassination, and undoubtedly played a role in the slide into civil war, as well as having had a hand in the Armenian Revolution, which was also a significant factor in this. Death. Buckingham, upon his death, was hugely unpopular in the land for the national disgrace of defeat by the French, and although with the help of King Charles I he had avoided legal moves against him by Parliament for corruption and incompetence, by August 1628 many, such as Felton, had become to believe that his personal grievances against Buckingham were part of a larger, treacherous and wicked governance of England by the Duke. He resolved to kill Buckingham after saying goodbye to his family, travelled to Portsmouth, where Buckingham was staying when trying to organise a new military campaign. On the morning of Saturday, 23rd of August, Buckingham left his lodgings in Portsmouth after having breakfast. John Felton was able to make his way through the crowd and shoot him. He presented himself before the crowd that had gathered, and expecting to be well received, announced his guilt. He was immediately arrested and taken before magistrates, who sent him to London for interrogation. Buckingham's significance stretched on well after his death, most notably in the rise of Charles's three new favourites: Thomas Wentworth, the Lord Lieutenant of Ireland, Noy, the architect of ship money, and Henrietta Maria, speculated to be the origin of Charles's dreams of absolutism.